I am 97 years old. There is a Red Cross package on my bookshelf. It has been there for 80 years. The cardboard is so soft now, you could push your thumb through it. The Red Cross on the side has faded to pink. My grandchildren ask about it every Christmas. Opa, what's in the box? And every Christmas I change the subject. They think I've forgotten what's inside. I haven't. I've never opened it. Not once in 80 years. A Jewish American sergeant handed me that box on June 4th, 1943, at Norfolk Naval Base, Virginia. I was 20 years old, an Unteroffizier in Rommel's Afrika Corps, and I had spent 3 years believing that man was subhuman. He smiled at me when he handed it over. He smiled at his enemy. And my world, the one built on lies I would have died for, started collapsing right there on that dock. So let me tell you what I saw, what 425,000 of us saw, and why the things that destroyed the Third Reich in our minds weren't bullets or bombs. They were apples and Christmas carols, and a woman in Texas who sang to the men her son was trying to kill. We crossed the Atlantic in 14 days, expecting the worst. We'd been told Americans tortured prisoners. We'd been told they were savages, a mongrel race, a democracy too soft and divided to fight a real war. When I gripped the railing and walked down that gangplank at Norfolk, I expected to see brutality. Instead, I saw dock workers, white and Negro, operating side by side with machinery that looked like it came from the next century. Women in coveralls running cranes, children selling newspapers at the gates. Nobody ran at the sight of enemy uniforms. Nobody seemed afraid of anything. I whispered to the man behind me, "Die spinnen, die Amerikaner." The Americans are crazy. Norfolk Naval Base sprawled across 4,300 acres. Its docks handled more tonnage in a single morning than Hamburg managed in a week. But it wasn't the scale that stunned us. It was the normalcy. Vendors sold coffee and donuts within sight of warships. A brass band played at a war bond rally nearby. Civilians wandered freely near military installations. This was a nation at war that refused to act like it. Then came the first impossibility. American officers read us our Geneva Convention rights in fluent German. They asked about dietary needs. Jewish American personnel, sergeants with clearly Jewish surnames, distributed Red Cross packages. They offered kosher meals for any Jewish prisoners among us. Some of our men laughed nervously, thinking it was mockery. It wasn't mockery. The American military had prepared religious dietary options for its enemies. A Negro medical technician drew blood from Wehrmacht officers during routine health screening. In Germany, such racial contact was legally forbidden. Here it was Tuesday. They led us to a mess hall where American sailors were already eating. Enemies who had been trying to kill each other in convoy battles, eating in the same facility. Americans on one end, Germans on the other. Same food, same quality. The Americans didn't even look at us. They were listening to a baseball game on the radio. We were not interesting enough to interrupt the seventh inning. The train to Texas was not a boxcar. It was a passenger coach with cushioned seats. At Union Station in Washington, we watched American families saying goodbye to soldiers headed to training camps. Wives kissing husbands in public. Children waving flags. Teenagers sharing milkshakes. The same platform held enemies and families, separated only by windows and guards, who seemed more interested in directing traffic than watching us. Through Pennsylvania, we passed factories, displaying their names in huge letters. No camouflage, no concealment. The Glenn L. Martin aircraft plant in Baltimore had parking lots full of workers' personal automobiles. We could count the B-26 bombers lined up for delivery. They didn't care that we could see. They didn't need to hide. That was the message, though I didn't understand it yet. At a stop in Harrisburg, I watched a worker at shift change throw away a half-eaten apple and pull a fresh one from his lunchbox. The casual waste of food by a laborer. Our officers had watched men fight over scraps in Afrika. The apple destroyed something in me. I didn't know what yet, but something cracked. Camp Hearn, Texas, 720 acres. They put us in wooden barracks with electric lights and indoor plumbing, hot water, individual beds with mattresses and sheets and blankets, recreation halls with ping-pong tables and musical instruments. A Swiss inspector named Sandstrom wrote that our conditions exceed not only Geneva Convention requirements, but surpass living conditions many of these men knew in Germany. He was right. I had never lived this well as a civilian. They gave us a canteen, a store where we could buy cigarettes, chocolate, soap, writing materials, with script we earned from voluntary labor. 80 cents a day, the same base pay as American privates. The idea that enemy prisoners could shop, could choose, could have wants beyond survival. It scrambled everything we knew about how power works. They sent us to work. At the King Ranch near Kingsville, 825,000 acres, larger than Rhode Island. I picked cotton alongside Mexican-American vaqueros and Negro ranch hands. A single combine harvester replaced dozens of workers. They used airplanes to survey cattle herds. The foreman, Richard Cleburne Jr., treated us like temporary employees, not enemies. And the racial mixing, men of different skin working side by side, directly contradicted everything we've been taught about racial hierarchy. At the cotton gins in Taylor, Caldwell, and Waller counties, we saw processing speeds impossible by European standards. The Hearn cotton oil mill processed more cotton in a day than German textile mills handled in a month. Yet workers took regular breaks. They ate full lunches. They listened to radios. Productivity through good treatment rather than harsh discipline. It wasn't supposed to work, but it did. The Americans let us read books that would have meant death to possess in Germany. Thomas Mann, Remarque, Leon Feuchtwanger. 340 of us enrolled in college courses through Sam Houston State Teachers College, English, American history, mathematics, agriculture. Professors visited our camp monthly to lecture. Enemies teaching enemies. Our camp newspaper evolved from Nazi propaganda in early editions to open democratic discussions by late 1944. Something was changing, and the Americans knew it, and they were patient about it. But what broke us, what broke me, was Christmas, 1943. The entire town of Hearn, population 2,000, mobilized for their enemies. Local churches collected 4,800 individual gift packages. Schools contributed handmade cards. The American Legion Post 164, veterans of World War I who had fought Germans 25 years earlier, donated cigarettes and candy and sports equipment to us, to current German enemies. The garden club decorated our camp with holly and evergreen boughs. The Christmas tree stood 30 feet tall, with electric lights that burned continuously. Our camp used more electricity for decorations than most German villages had for all purposes. Then the Methodist church choir came. They had learned German Christmas carols phonetically. The choir director was a woman named Sarah Patterson. Her son was serving in Italy, fighting Germans. She stood in front of us and sang Stille Nacht to men whose comrades were trying to kill her boy. Several of us broke down. I was one of them. The Christmas feast. Roast turkey, £1 per man. Ham, candied sweet potatoes, cornbread stuffing, cranberry sauce, mince pie, apple pie, ice cream, beer for enlisted, California wine for officers, 5,000 calories per person. Back in Germany, civilians, our families, received 1,200 calories daily when they could get it. I want you to understand what that does to a man. Not the food, the gesture. These people whose sons we had tried to kill gave us gifts, sang to us in our language, fed us better than their own families ate. Their kindness wasn't weakness. It was the confidence of people who had already won, not just the war, but the argument about how human beings should treat each other. I watched the 1944 election from camp. Roosevelt challenged by Dewey. Republicans criticizing war management during wartime. Newspapers publishing opposition views. Political cartoons mocking the commander-in-chief. And the war effort didn't collapse. It strengthened. Democracy's strength through discord rather than despite it. Everything I'd believed about the need for a strong hand, a single leader, total obedience, answered by a nation arguing its way to victory. When the war ended, they didn't just send us home, they prepared us. 31,000 prisoners enrolled in vocational training. 18,000 studied English. 12,000 took agricultural programs. They explained the Marshall Plan before it was public. State Department officials visited our camps, explaining that America intended to rebuild Germany, not punish it. Victor to vanquished, offering a hand up. It broke the last of us who were still holding on to the old thinking. Of 425,000 German prisoners in America, there were only 2,222 escape attempts, 7 confirmed cases of sabotage, 87% volunteered for labor. After the war, 74% held favorable views of democracy. 5,000 of us legally immigrated to America. 48 became Bundestag members. Over 2,000 taught in schools. We didn't just rebuild Germany. We rebuilt it on the blueprint we'd seen in Texas cotton fields and church choirs and camp libraries. Georg Gärtner escaped from Camp Deming, New Mexico in 1945. He didn't flee the country. He stayed in America illegally for 40 years, married an American woman, raised children, became a tennis instructor in California. He surrendered in 1985. He had been American longer than he'd ever been German. That tells you everything. In 1984, 50 of us went back to Herne. Former enemies embraced former guards. Wehrmacht veterans placed flowers at the American Legion Memorial. Fritz Zimmermann said what we all felt. We came as enemies, believing in racial superiority and national destiny. We left as friends, understanding that democracy's chaos is its strength. I came to America as a prisoner in 1943. I came back as an immigrant in 1953. I've lived here 70 years now. My children were born here. My grandchildren have never known anything but freedom. That Red Cross package is still on my shelf, still sealed. My grandchildren will ask about it again this Christmas, and I will tell them this time. I'll tell them it was handed to me by a Jewish sergeant who smiled at a Nazi, and that his smile was more powerful than any weapon either side ever built. I am 97 years old. I have been an American longer than I was ever a German. And it all began with a sealed box and a man who chose kindness over hatred on a dock in Virginia, on a morning when the world was at war, and one small act of humanity started winning the peace.